Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News Channel. Now, let's take a look at the state of the economy with Ayo Teriba, CEO Economic Associates, who will be discussing a number of issues, including the Sukuk bond and infrastructure. Teriba, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Earlier on this program today, we talked about the CBN and the economy. And we expressed concern about the CBN printing money and, how that can affect the economy. Now, what are the alternatives to CBN financing in terms of government's revenue prospects? I mean, is it that we don't have any other option?
We do, as it turns out, very fortunately for Nigeria, have a lot of options. The Nigerian government is beginning to create the impression of, insolvency. Whereas the Nigerian government is quite solvent. It's just illiquid. You've got a drop in government revenue because of the fall in export incomes. But that's not the end of the world. We shouldn't resort to a situation in which the budget is primarily financed by borrowing. And the component that is being financed by borrowing is actually the recurrent component. Because disbursements are not being made. Yeah. So you don't have to get a situation where you now have to borrow to finance recurrent spending. Now, the Nigerian government is very rich in assets, both financial assets and non-financial assets. And you can convert some of these assets into liquidity, rather than resorting to a situation in which you are borrowing. When you say financial assets, we've created pension fund management that used to be a burden on the government, and we pushed it, into the private realm. So you could also identify other cash flows of government that you could. Yeah. Then the companies, the government owns more or less all infrastructure in Nigeria except telecoms. And you don't have to own everything. You can do partial privatization and unlock some of the assets that do partial divestment. It could even be minority, divestment. Saudi is selling only 5% of Aramco. Why do you have to wait? Saudi is very aggressive, looking for 200 billion. You could get more than that, but you have to do things. You can't just sit down and begin to borrow when you have assets that you can raise liquidity on.
Yeah, some other Nigerians, they hold this view. I know one prominent lawyer even wrote a piece saying Nigeria should not borrow because it doesn't make sense.
Nigeria does not need to borrow. Nigeria has wealth that it could convert to liquidity.
Yeah, but there are also many constraints within the economy. Transportation, energy, education, health. When you talk about infrastructure financing, how do we get around the revenue constraints?
Yeah, I mean, we are boxing ourselves into a corner. We just said that much of government borrowing goes to finance recurrent items. And government is beginning to say we are going to transfer, is it 60% of the capital budget to next year's budget. So we have been unable, we've only been able, as I understand, to do 15% of our intended capital outlay. Now, you don't have the money to spend on infrastructure. Why don't you treat them the way you treated telecoms? By allowing private investors to come in. Bottoms up. Don't sell what you have if you don't want to sell. Let them come and create their own.
Privatization is beginning to sound like a cure for many of these problems.
And that's what it is. If you don't have the money to spend on capital vote and there's,
you make it sound like it's a formula that, you can just apply.
If it wasn't a formula, why is Saudi Arabia in a similar situation as we are? Why are they looking for 200 billion? Very small economy, they have 40 million people, we have 160 million people. If a country with 40 million people wants to raise 200 billion, we should be acting more aggressively, not for government to hold on to infrastructure sectors that it cannot fund. And there's cheap money out there. So open it up. It's logical. You didn't regret opening telecoms up. You are not going to regret opening power transmission up, or opening rail up, or opening gas up, or education or health. Open it. It's the time to do so.
Well, of late, there's been a lot of focus on what is called the Sukuk bond.
Yes.
Now, what can it achieve? Especially in the light of the politics that has also developed around it. The Christian Association of Nigeria, for example, says it's an attempt to Islamize Nigeria. Is this about Islamization, or what is it in your own view?
Right. Government should seek all possible sources of financing that it can get. Nigeria has roughly half its population as Muslims and half its population as Christians. I am a Christian, but you cannot ignore the fact that half of Nigeria's population are Muslims, including some of members of my own family. So there's nothing wrong in government raising the Sukuk bond. There's nothing wrong in government embracing Islamic finance. Somebody has called on the CAN to go and create their own bond if they want. If they also create theirs, government will patronize them. And issuing Sukuk bond does not amount to Islamization. The CAN the government should have done its bit. No, the CAN is a stakeholder. And you should have engaged them. You should have allayed their fears. Britain has issued Sukuk bonds. Are you going to claim that because Britain has issued Sukuk bonds is Islamizing Britain? We are not more Christian. Nigeria is not more Christian than England. And they are doing Sukuk bond. So government should raise all the types of financing. It's inclusion. They're trying to include the Islamic group, in the financial process. So you've raised over 100 billion. If you can raise more than that, please go ahead.
If I get you right, the real challenge really is one of public enlightenment.
That's right, engaging stakeholders and allaying their fears and giving examples of other jurisdictions that you can in no way claim they are about to Islamize that have issued the bond.
But this bond, what is it meant for? Is there a particular target?
Well, the thing about it, the thing about Islamic finance, which is also biblical, if you look at the Old Testament, the Lord Jesus Christ discouraged lending with usury. That, it's hard people that lend people money and collect interest. So the Islamic code, which is similar to the Judaism, to the Old Testament, insist on that. They won't participate if it's about interest. So this is non-interest finance. You can do profit sharing, but the borrower will not pay. And so it's designed, to be in compliance in part with the Islamic code. And of course, it's also in sync with the biblical code.
Well, thank you very much, Ayo Teriba. Always a delight to have you on This Day Live. You've been watching This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati. Thank you all for watching. It's bye for now. Thank you.